Friends, I think it's time to have an honest chat about Lumivitae and why I no longer endorse their products or align with the company in general, and what I'm moving towards instead. Because I've been getting this question from folks a lot lately who are looking for hydrogen solutions, and unfortunately, I just cannot endorse Lumivitae anymore. I think that, like all companies, of course, they started with pure intentions, and I really believed in Nuno Nina's mission, and I believed in his research, and I spoke with him at length before I decided to endorse the bottle. But something has changed. Some things have changed along the way, so I want to be really clear about those. First of all, Nuno Nina is no longer a part of the company. He was behind the production of the technology all along, but he's actually stepped away for his own reasons, a lot of which I echo the sentiments of. But his water acumen was a large part of why I joined in the first place. Beyond that, though, the biggest reason that I'm walking away is because the materials that make the bottles now are not the same as they were originally advertised to be. One of the biggest selling points for the whole bottle was that Nuno Nina had promised that the PEM membrane would be extremely high quality. He did this demonstration on stage where he couldn't even cut the membrane with razor sharp scissors. No one could tear it with their bare hands. It was supposed to be practically indestructible. Now, however, the membrane is easily cut, even with dull scissors, even torn with your bare hands. It's flimsy. We don't know exactly when that switched, but this was documented on a bottle that was received at the Miami launch party, and that was in the spring of 2024. So it's been happening for at least that long. Now, I've personally owned 2 of their bottles, both of which broke in some way or another, and that was such a common story for so many people who invested in these relatively expensive products that would just continuously break, and then the customer service was not always very forthcoming or great about sending replacements either. Now, when it comes to the hydrogen production itself, the IHSA certification was correct at first about the ppm of hydrogen that the bottle released, about 1.9 ppm if you keep it going for 9 minutes, which is relatively low. But, Nuno believed it was a combination of that plus the frequency in the water that made it even more effective. And regardless of whether or not that's true, we can set that aside for now. But once the bottle is a little bit older, the readings that people were getting were significantly lower. And some of them tested much lower, even right off the assembly belt. So this is also, of course, taking into account the fact that different hydrogen testing methods produce different answers. It seems like there may have just been some kind of accidental factory oversight where not all of the bottles were being tested for their ability to produce hydrogen to the promised levels, or even to produce the same amount of hydrogen uniformly across all of the bottles that they were creating, even using the same testing method, because the numbers would swing vastly from one bottle to another bottle. And apparently different batches were just completely different. And then with all of them, after several months, the numbers dropped quite low compared to when the bottles were new right off the belt, even when they had been washed and maintained correctly the whole time, which just makes it unclear their level of efficacy at all. I mean, there was no cohesion across the board. But then this is the part where it really started getting concerning for me. I've spoken at length to one of the former top leaders and board members in the company, and there have been some ethical issues that have come to light. There's someone very high up in the company, and I won't name names, but they have continuously had people come out against them saying that they have been burned in all kinds of various ways, only to then receive cease and desist letters from lawyers when they have tried to speak out about the abuses of power that were happening. Some people even had their accounts shut down for speaking out. Some people had many thousands of dollars. I know one case of $10,000 in commissions completely blocked and unpaid to this day as a result of speaking out against some of these abuses of power. Another one of the higher ups in the company was actually caught stealing hundreds of team members from another leader in the company. And it turns out that that same person had also previously been arrested for major fraud several years prior for selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fake securities, which was such a scandal, it caused one man to even take his own life. So not pretty stories were involved in here. So long story short, and again, without naming names, some people were doing some shady things, and the company culture was just often very toxic. And for that reason, many of the people that I personally trust and respected who were originally a part of the company have stepped away from it in recent months, or I would say within the past year. And, I just have to say, this is one of the reasons why I've never liked the idea of aligning with just one singular company, because I've seen this happen too many times where someone will build their whole career around one product or one company, and then their whole livelihood is singularly dependent on the consistency and the reputation of that one brand. They've wrapped their whole reputation around that brand's reputation as well, because they've so wholeheartedly endorsed it. Or their livelihood becomes dependent upon that brand continuing to stay the best, even if something else comes out onto the market later on that might actually be better. People start developing loyalty to a brand rather than a loyalty to a greater mission. And I've seen so many people in this company and others brainwash themselves with, dreams and promises of making millions of dollars while they pour all of their precious time and energy into something that still only pays them $500 a month, and yet they still defend it and refuse to acknowledge the imbalances in that setup, in that pay structure. As a friend of mine recently said, there's a big difference between a cult of empty promises versus being a real business owner who understands scaling without overhyping, over-delivering and under-promising. And I think anytime you're in business, that really has to be your MO, right? And there's so many people in the whole MLM world in general that get so dogmatic about their specific company. I can think of one brand in the water space in particular, I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about, that has become so cult-like that their affiliates completely refuse to look at any science that goes against the company claims and rhetoric, the company narrative. But what I'm all about personally is being devoted to water, with a capital W, period. Being a servant and a steward and a student of water. And then, as a downstream effect of that, representing water solutions that are based as much as possible on biomimicry, on basically replicating the way in which nature treats water. And it's for that reason that I'm building a team that's based on true overall water honoring. And there are a few companies that we will align with who are top of the line, whom I trust and respect, but we're going to have the diversification within those affiliate agreements to be able to serve people in a more well-rounded and holistic way, not just solely focused on one gadget as the end-all be-all, because different people have different water needs. Just a single water bottle doesn't help people who, for example, are looking for a whole home water solution. Or, someone who wants a whole home water solution, that wouldn't help, for example, a traveler who needs something that's more portable. There are so many different needs, and different companies help us represent that in a more holistic way. And I've put together a curated group of the top companies that provide altogether, between the few of them, the best overall well-rounded sources of solutions for everyone's needs. These are companies that I've worked with for years, companies that I respect, that also have this community-based business model as well, which I think is really where the future of business is going. And I will be teaching and certifying team members in my Water is Life hydration consultation protocol methodology so that they can then go out and spread this hydration healing amidst their own communities as well. Now, of course, we're also going to have business training available to give everyone the tools that they need to actually thrive in business. And we're going to be empowering one another in our own unique water missions as well. And this is what I'm most excited about here. Everyone has their own unique calling, their own unique medicine to share within the world of water. And, we're going to be creating a team culture of service to water, of water activism, of serving our greater missions in the water world. So far, we have people coming on board in such a diverse spectrum of water wisdom carriers. We've got people ranging from, water priestesses to quantum biology experts to underwater dancers to water activists to successful entrepreneurs and so much more. And what we're creating is really a platform, a community, and a training that's going to be providing them with the tools that they need to step more fully into their own unique mission, with lots of support and encouragement and training from other water kindred spirits, while also, of course, making an impact and making an income. Because network marketing is one of the most recession-resistant business models that there is. And as we head into this economic recession that we're clearly going into, I feel it's even more important than ever to set ourselves up and set our friends and community members up as well in a resilient way. Now, network marketing is a field that always grows well, even in a bad economy, as people start taking more personal empowerment over their own entrepreneurship. And I just don't like the way that I've seen it done in the past, though. I don't like, again, being overly devoted to or dogmatic on a particular product, or putting all of your eggs in one basket without any diversification, without having a safety net of diversification, or the way that people become obsessed with gadgets and tech rather than with actual nature, actual water, actual service to community, actual guardianship, making a broader impact through service and through activism. So on this team, we're here to do things differently. We're here to serve the waters in the best way that we can and to form an alliance of like-minded, watery, kindred spirits, as I said, as we do so. So anyway, if that sounds like something that calls to you, comment opportunity, and I will send you a link to the wait list. I remain, as ever, in service of water and in service of those who are in service to water. So let's do this the right way. I look forward to seeing you on the team if it resonates.